Greetings. It has been a few moments since the last time I decided to record, so this one might run for a bit. Ah, Today there's a few things on my mind. Yeah, yeah, I love it when I look at my notes and go, oh, what the hell I meant wrote there. Um, Today I'm going to go over a few things from personal to general. Usually, if I go from general to particular, but usually going from particular to general. Some of it's it's cover everything. So, first two, three are personal, and then we go to outwards. So, first one is since um, yeah, person. What my hypothesis has always been, once I figured out the structure of the mind, that bigotry um, is the same as the cluster B personality, which is a reduced person. Person, um, you know, this is like the NPD person or cluster B with narcissistic traits. And then you have there's your psychopath, and then there's your narcissist, which is just basically feminine. And psychopath being masculine. Basically, psychopath is a walking stomach, and narcissist is a walking stomach, but mostly emotion. Either way, everything's an object to these persons, and but it does give rise to a very interesting way of thinking to see how they're actually just terrified people, or actually vessels of people. And it got me to thinking about, well, acquaintance, friend, whatever, Robin, and her reactions about things, where since she got herself into the middle of this when she was stupid, see, somehow what I learned is the reason I asked for her to talk to her mom is because she has this very calming way when she actually cares about somebody of speaking, and it's really awesome. But it can only come from the real self. Unfortunately, what women do is they treat the guy they like shit, and then they throw all the externalization and then at them because they can't deal with their own emotions. And the guy, and then they expect that guy to work through all of their emotions and get to them. They're like, go fuck yourself. Your value set is not that worth. I don't give a fuck who you are. And the main reason is with Robin, she has a bad temper. She has a really bad temper, and she got it from her dad probably. And I've saw it. And to a woman, the rejection, the pushing out of the network is the most terrifying thing. To men, and that is their form of death. You see that within how they commit suicide, how they actually usually kill, which is usually not direct, it's all indirect because it's considered removal of the network as opposed to the actual physical action. So it's an emotional death that can lead to a physical death, and it's not, and they could absolve themselves, saying, "Well, I didn't really do anything." Don't come back to this point later. So Robin has a really bad temper, But one of the things is like she was there. She knows that what my standards are to get to the as I have zones of people. Where do I put people? Yes, you have to categorize people with what behaviors do you get close to me, what behaviors you don't get close to me, and what she wants, she won't do the behaviors necessary to get close to me, but then blames me for having standards on my behavior, what behaviors I accept. And then, so for me, it's I have to have a communication. We got to be able to communicate. Most women cannot communicate with the person they care about because they get all lost in their own emotions, and they get selfish, and they don't actually start thinking. They don't care. It's me, 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 me. Especially if they like the guy. For me, and she has a very soothing way of communicating, which I realized was the way that her mom talked to her dad. And she was there just once. It was a year ago, whatever ago. Shit was going really bad, and it was really, it was like, finally, I can actually talk to somebody. But then she went into her fucking freaked out mode and started pushing and being really mean and really nasty because she couldn't deal with her own emotions. And I know because of that nasty temper, she came at me with that temper. I will defend myself. And it won't be nice. And in those points, then it would be on me for, oh, you should. Nope. I know that she can be violent. I can be violent, exceptionally violent, but I'm efficient with my violence. So I stay away from my violence. Two, and so you're seeing that women in general, usually because of this split self, look for other split self persons. That's why this narcissism and this psychopathy is so prevalent right now in our culture, because the greatest generation, those fuckers died off. They realized what happens when the animal self runs things. Because that's all it is a walking stomach. If the stomach was the first brain, then the brain made a heart, and then the heart, it's like you have three brains: your stomach, your heart, and then your brain. But it's also starting from the heart, from your stomach. So that's why you get that id, ego, superego, and then you're getting both of them to work together, create a heart. That's the thing about narcissists. They've compressed their heart, so they're just a super ego, and psychopaths, they're just a walking stomach. And then you have the private public self, all that. So to show this again, we're going to talk about now what happened with Robin. We're going to talk about Madison Orange. Madison Orange, because it also shows will show how people with how my perspective on persons who externalize themselves. It's that some psychologists may call a cluster B personality. As I was thinking, is okay. How do they? What they do is they find the good. They're always triangulating because that way they're between A and B. So here's a person who has pretty awesome traits, pretty chill, whatever, and all their negative shit. And then they have all their negative shit. So they go, okay, I gotta dump my negative shit onto that person. So they ping, 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 push, get you to get angry. He goes like, what the fuck's wrong with you? And then you're like, oh no. And then they that's with the love bombing, the grooming, all of that. And then they use this point to get you all reeled into their BS because they're extremely unhealthy. They're not people, and then their whole goal is to get you to split like they did as a child. Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. But with the freeze perspective, what I've just recently learned is that's at that point you have that disassociation. That's what they've been trying to do. McRaven, Abeloff, Kennedy, and now hip hop into the Kardashians. We're trying to get me to split, so that way then to remove my personality, and then so also the reason that whole push of homosexuals to get me to. Their whole goal is to get me to split, and then use that to push their personality, what they want in the personality, out of my personality, out of me. It's kind of what they did to Bruce Jenner, and that ain't happening. So that's their main thing, and the way they do that is we're going to see with what they did with Madison Orange. So, see, Madison Orange, the first time, it was two times. She knows this shit's going on. I'm going, okay, and this will also return to Trump and autocrats as well, because they do the exact same process, same thing, same shit, different pile. So Madison Orange actually had helped me show that Ty was playing fuck games in the background, and then she did it, and then with the help of Holly, they had their little dominance orgy, and I was pissed. And women, as I said, women, when they are afraid, their first thing of the feminine is to run. And they always run in the wrong direction. They're basically little children. I mean, I should say women. A woman understands. Most adults, feminine, are actually still girls. So I was pissed. I'm like, because you just threw me under the bus, which was the idea, which was the goal. And then now, and then Ty did it again when he raped her, using Holly to do that again. But then now she is going to try to cover up her shame wounds of both throwing me under the bus and being raped. You saw that in the last video with the last gaslight. But what was interesting is it did show exactly the process of how they turn people into flying monkeys, how they get people to lose themselves. See, Madison Orange really looked up to Holly, but Holly is codependent on Jana. Only reason Holly's alive is because she had a kid. And Ty's using that, the drug dealer, and then Jana, Jana Lewis, or actually Miss Lewis, is running like a little child. First she ran to Kennedy, now she runs with the Kardashians. Well, first it was, see here, run to the drug dealers, the cartels, then run to Kennedy, and then now to the Kardashians. And hip hop can destroy itself. This is the same shit, different pile. Just basically a little 3-year-old who never got contained by her parents. She was able to get away with anything. So that's her behaviors, and but what they do. So how does this work into getting people to give up their basically themselves? So as I said, so Holly then gets, Madison Orange throws me under the bus. I'm pissed. I let her know about it. Then she runs, like always, instead of saying, "Hey, dude, I was afraid. I didn't, but because he gets them all fucked up. And then they raped her, get her all fucked up the day before, keep her out, and everyone's there, knows about it. I even said she's not going to do anything. She's going to try to hide with her shame wound. She does this. So the more times that he keeps breaking her boundaries. So what's it probably done since last week? Because from the picture after they tried to, picture with Mike, Beth, and her, she started to realize, or partially realized, yeah, because I guess she didn't think I actually was listening to her. That I had been listening, and and I did have her back until you threw me under the bus. And the addendum has not been put in because I just wanted to see what would happen, and it's happened. So it's been quite interesting. So what they do, and we saw that also with, once again, with what Ivanka Trump did with the FBI. Like, once you, and also Trump did with all the entire staff, because the question keeps coming up is why are these red lines being crossed? Well, what they do is they get you to do one little thing. Okay, and then you do that, and it's not really that bad because it wasn't all that. It was it was positive. Then they do a negative. Then they do a positive. And from the narcissist perspective, what they're doing is dumping all this positive, and then they'll start withdrawing it. I just everything I'm doing is, as I said, I did not expect Madison Orange to actually show courage. What this is mostly doing is when she's finally either completely destroyed or she ends up dead in 3 to 5 years, her parents or people who actually cared about her can go back and sue the Santa Monica Police Department for keeping a cartel member active without any strings. Or when she finally does pull her head out of her ass, there is paperwork to show that she's believed that what happened to her. But instead, what always happens is they once a person's abused, and because they've given up themselves a little bit, they've I need you to do this stupid thing, and then you do this stupid thing. You see that with the gangs. You say they have to get jumped in, blood out. Do something horrible, so that way you cannot. You destroy yourself. You destroy the idea of who you are. And so Madison Orange's trust was abused by Holly Adams. And they and so now that they've run to the Kardashians because of the vice president finally getting rid of the two very masculine chiefs of staffs, feminine masculine, who were not working for her best interest or the country's, more importantly, because they were bigots. They might be black, but they were bigots. Bigots are bigots. I don't care what. It's an externalized self. It's externalizing their self-hatred. And so now they went running to the Kardashians trying to find the most powerful. And then they're trying to say, oh, what everything I'm said is. Then of course becomes a devaluation on me, which unfortunately for their position, they can't devalue that position. They can't devalue who I am. They could say all the smear campaigns, whatever, but who I am is pretty much set in stone. And get to that in a bit. So Madison Orange, once I get to that done, I'll put in the addendum to let the DA know, because it's all about making sure there is on paperwork and putting the responsibility in its proper place, that these very powerful people are purposefully using the cartels and everything to destroy America, and we're seeing that how this is done on a microcosm with the behaviors of this three person. And the thing is, when you look at it, Holly Adams did have heart, but she's so codependent. And you just look at her body language: shoulders forward, chest tucked in. She's dying. Once she's gonna either have to kill Jana, or Jana will end up killing her, and then Ty will just move on to another set of dumb hoes, because he's nothing more than a fucking gold digger. So, and what the Kennedy and the Kardashians they're trying to do. The Kennedys trying to gain control over the house music scene, but unfortunately, the house, it's like if once that begins, it's you're going to see a lot more deaths because of the drug culture there, which is not biggies, but it's usually the drug dealers are on the outside. They're kept on the periphery. And it's more, especially in Europe, it's more of a place of just, hey man, having a good time. It's a definitely more communal type thing where positive is allowed in, where, I never judged, I didn't really care. It wasn't until they attacked me because Miss Lewis can't, that entity thing, that's Jana, the heart, Jan, the id, Miss Lewis, the superego, don't exist. They're just, there's three splitting diasporic persons. And the superego can't exist without the triangulation because it doesn't know where it is. It doesn't have a time space position. Basically, it's the demon. And so this demon is what controls this vessel of the id, and then the heart, which is Jana, is compressed, which is stuck as a 3-year old. But all the actions, activities are still controlled by the 3-year old because that's how I know that Jana, that Miss Lewis and her mother killed their father to get to the money. That Miss Lewis, the mother, the true mother, did this to all of her kids. Jana's brother ended up marrying an Italian person who was still the upper class, but just had extremely bad NPD to the point where her niece is going through the same thing with her her sister-in-law. And then the center sister is the golden child, but she couldn't hold together a marriage either because apparently her behavior became just as shitty. And so, that's all of this was told to me by Jana. All this, quote, acting out is Jana telling me what was going on in the family because my personality triggered Jana. And then Ty moved in to stop the, what is it called, object permanence, because Jana recognized the behaviors of her dad. Ms. Lewis is terrified of her dad. It's quite interesting, and I never looked up anything. I have not looked up, I have no idea who Mr. Lewis was. I have no idea of anything outside of the point I looked up the trying to find Miss Lewis as a lawyer. But I had already hypothesized that she had become a lawyer to protect herself. Jana became a lawyer to protect herself from the bullshit of Miss Lewis. But she can be very easily broken because she can't work with anybody. She doesn't have any social skills, realistically. So once they get you to give up who you are, they give you these positive emotions, then they start pulling that away. But what they do is now this back and forthing because, and this is more of the feminine, because they can't, when a woman does not face their own, woman or man, the person who has this externalizing self, the child self, does not face themselves and grow out of being basically a fucking kid, a spoiled little brat, they start externalizing. And you see that with this rage spiral states. And so they get the people, the flying monkeys, to slowly give away their self. So they give them the pain, they give them the pleasure, then they give them pain, then they give them pleasure, and it's back and forth of that pain pleasure dichotomy. So they get things mixed up, and they just don't want to deal with the pain or it's like, and then they get the person that, because they don't hold true to their own selves, the people, the flying monkeys, is like Madison Orange, did not hold true to herself and say, no, dude, I knew this dude was a bad dude. I don't care, basically, but she was so enthralled with Holly Adams as being her idol. Here's a woman, DJ, yay, that Holly Adams betrayed her. And now, to avoid her own shame as opposed to actually facing her shame, she'll throw me under the bus and then still think, and then saying, well, as women always do, think they go to the stronger person. this is fucking her up. Well, I'm not as you know, Kennedy, usually her bullshit because she hides behind her Secret Service. She's gotten away with this for decades, and she has done a damaging amount of to the culture of American culture in general, and the culture of LA in particular. It is a cesspool of narcissism, that whole culture, and she is one of the, it might have it might have happened anyways, but she was definitely a high contributor to that. Because she's created some of the, she's not created, she's been a producer on some really great films, so she could see, this person's got a good heart. Steven Spielberg. She was in a video. She was basically mocking George Lucas. Oh, it just came out of your head. But her husband's a fucking moron. He's a psychopath. He thinks he's more clever than he really is. If it just came out of his head, then why can't her husband do it? He can't. Because to be able to do that, you would have to go through all of those processes. And once you go through those processes, if you remove the demon set from who you are, you can't do it without the growth. She destroyed her child self. And you can see it in her skin, her eyes, the way she speaks. Everything about her is a destroyed human. She is not there. It's sad, especially because she was so jealous of her brothers. Which this lens leads me to Lady Markle. So what I've been watching over the last week is, on the last time I said something, I said, okay, Lady Markle, you need to go move from LA to Silicon Valley. You're still in California. There's still that kind of rhythm. That whole West Coast has that kind of rhythm, the more rhythm of this externalized self. But the farther north you go, say up to, it's more introverted, and LA is extroverted, and then San Diego is kind of in betweenish. It's because, I guess, because of, they got that gap with the Marine base down south, so the blob stops and there's a disconnect, and also and so that there's a place where the culture can jump. So, and it's not as fucked up as what's happening in La La Land. And it's the same as with San Francisco. There's a jump because of the coastline. But there was a purpose and a reason for that. What happened was, so the Hall, showing its own bigotry and showing why we ended up getting Trump over Bernie, was because Africa, Black America, and the higher states, out of spite, wouldn't even entertain anything about Bernie Sanders. And nobody could understand why. It was generations and generations of abuse coming home to roost. Lack of education, constant abuse, and it was like, well, them white people on him, no, and they're still thinking, well, we've been here, we'll get through this. No, dude, this is on the genocide level. This is on the whole genocide level. Steve Bannon is a white nationalist. Birds of a feather flock together. Show me your company, and I'll tell you who you are. And they've said what they're going to do. Believe them. They want an authoritarian country in the likes of Orban and Hitler and Mussolini. This is an existential threat. And part of that is because of the generations of abuse that African Americans have suffered. But then they start abusing each other and themselves. It would be some of the African Americans, blacks, intellectuals who are trying to, you do what I tell you, you gotta bow, and you go fucking kiss my ass. I bow to no one. I might physically bow, but make no mistake, inside, I'll never bow. Now, with that said, McRaven is formulating his next attack because he bowed years ago. He gave up his soul for trinkets. See, it's fairly easy once you understand how they think. Their self hatred is the only thing that drives them. You I have another one, but this was still truth. Madison Orange didn't become courageous. She was proud. She's a very proud person. But that shame pulled all that pride down. Then she became apathetic, and then it was through fear that they fear, which is when they broke the they used fear intimidation after wearing it down after for a whole day, put it on display to say, "Ha ha, see how good we are." Then the shame, guilt for throwing me under the bus, and so, and then Robin with her fear, when it comes up as anger, as opposed to growing courage, bringing courage from out there to inside. Because remember, the feminine is not north south. It's it's more of the egg. It's in concentric circles. So those emotions they want to get those out there, and then they're holding all these negative emotions. And if they can get these emotions out to there, then they could figure they flip flop it and they switch it, and then they can get the outside inside. Well, that's not how it works. Inside is outside. Outside is inside. And that's why they pick assholes, because they're like, well, he's split just like me, so he's like me, he gets me. No, he doesn't get you. He's as fucked up as you because you did not get to grow yourself. Just as I triggered Jana being a one percenter, or in my case, a 0.01 percenter, my personality triggered Robin in the positive. Same thing happens. And it's not the first time the women, it's one of the things that was hilarious about Ty actually is in love with Miss Lewis. But the moment he actually truly, really loves Miss Lewis, he can say the words and all that, but the moment he does the thing that would create symbiotic love, she'll hate him. So he's stuck in his own hate. It's a sad, fucked up thing when you start seeing the structures of this. But it also gives him a predictability, which is quite nice. And in that predictability, we're talking about Lady Merkel again. Markle, the after screwing over the vice president, the vice president still hasn't been raised to the point where she needs to be raised. The the hall was given the opportunity, and all they kept trying to do was they're just dumping their self hatred, dumping their hatred, dumping their hatred, and they kept wanting her to break, and she didn't break. She wasn't going to give up her heart, so they could steal it. One of the things about the hall is apparently these cartels and these drug dealers have invaded it. As I was speaking to one, I think it was a Blue or a Scott, because I was like, hey, because there is a lot of times in the Blue and the Scots they blackball due to racism, so the hall was propped up, and instead of Hall trying to bring out the best and to counteract the racism in the Blue of the Hall, Blue and the rights, they ended up succumbing, which is exactly what those persons who would blackball persons who would try to go into the Blue and right. And I was speaking with them, and I was like, look, because in the where in the area I was at, there's like, we don't really give a shit, dude. Just are you a cold person? And they pretty much keep the bigots out of this particular lodge I was speaking with. And I was talking. I was like, yeah, it's like I can't join the hall because of the culture. I don't like the culture. And he was like, yeah, his thing was, I think a lot of it was because of the very Greek system of trying to break apart, of breaking someone. That's the Greeks in HBCUs are very well. All the Greek systems are that way, but in the Greeks, they redo a lot of the in the HBCUs. They do really do a lot of the how they were broken as Black Americans over the generations, not realizing they're just perpetuating a lot of times the their enslavement. And so that's why a lot of times persons like myself who are from other countries or whose families are not generationally enslaved fully, or like I said, from Jamaica. So I definitely there's lines that are probably that were more than likely actually I know were enslaved, and the enslavement in America was just way worse. It was still horrible. But then I have lines that are ancient through Western civilization, and so there's this mishmash of genetic memories. But but the destruction of self is not there, as it is in the way that African American black folks do it to themselves. Which is back once again to why was this important, is because once the hall screwed up, as opposed to raising the vice president, they tried to destroy the vice president out of their own jealousies and petties. And that's basically the vice president apparently finally realized what I was saying. It's been a year almost. We could have had voting rights. We could have had all the full package of the Build Back Better through. All of this, all of that. And I always said the reason I said I was just creating a platform. I was trying to stay away. It was not my job to say, hey, you need to do this. But I was like, hey, this is everything's good. You can go do this. If you do this, you will convince the world and America. But instead, they were spiteful and bitter, and they threw the country under the bus again. This can be, and one of the things this led me to was why does Islam grow in so the split personality? Islam grows so much in the prisons. Well, it's the same reason. It's the same split personality type of mindset from a purely logical perspective. And we'll get to that. Get to that and another one because it's a thing with what Boebert has just. Well, screw it. Boebert actually. I asked Ilhan Omar, will you state publicly you back the Constitution and secularism? Crickets. So Boebert has now outmaneuvered her. So we're sitting back to Lady Markle. Last week, it's like, okay, Prince Harry and Lady Markle requested of me to explain what was going on. And I said, okay. To the world, found out a few things. And then uh, these two women, because they're overly masculine, and they've been throwing the vice president under the bus because they thought they had their little good, person with a good heart that they can manipulate. That's the reason they had to go. Now they run back to hip hop and the Kardashians because the Kardashians made it quite clear, especially the matriarch of the family, because what they're trying to do is get to Prince Harry. So they read back to hip hop, and once again, as they're showing their lower selves of the African American black community. Instead of putting the country first in its existential crisis, it's all about them and their lack and inability to face themselves, and that their bad behaviors put them in their anger and their hatreds. It might have gotten them up too close to the vice president because, you because her mom did make sure that she knew African Americans, but she still had that connection to high education, both by being an immigrant, parents being an immigrant from both India and Jamaica, who both went to Stanford. So the expectations factor was still high of self, not outside self, because the expectation factor of a truly educated person is not you. It's have I done my best? So it's just been jealousies and so they roll back to hip hop, and one of the things they were trying to say is, "Oh, this was a lie. You're built on lies." I'm like, "Well, I hate to break the news to you. Oops. There is no way in hell." Well, I know for a fact it's not built on lies. What you guys think doesn't matter, because that's for your projection of self. So you could that way they can do their own bad behavior. But what they're trying to do now is, because Lady Markle, the reason that whole thing about previous about women running, is because instead of showing courage, which was kind of expected, Lady Markle is going, "I'm not leaving LA, not gonna freaking," because the other women are all pissed off. What do you mean, protect your husband? This kind of bullshit. They're supposed to do, that's the disjoint of self. They want the rights without the responsibility. Yes, Yoko Ono did break George off from the Beatles, did break up the Beatles, and you saw what happened with John Lennon because of such. He no longer had his friends for protection. But she got the money. So, yeah, whatever. And she's been living off of that for years. So they're trying to get through, because what they want is, once they get Harry, once they have control of Harry, then they think they got a beeline to the power of the crown, especially after the Queen passes. That, because of what I have said, and because of my affiliations and what's expected of those affiliations, that's not going to happen. See, Lady Markle does not understand. Every action she does is a matter of state. And it's not about, it's not the way the Hollywood dumbasses think it is. Once they break up, because they will break up Markle and Harry. I bet you within the last week, it's been all these people coming in, trying to show them, "We'll show you how to make money. We'll do a got you, dude." But what they're doing, and it's all been hip hop, because now hip hop is thinking, "Yeah, we have control. We got control of this prince." Well, actually, what will happen is this: Lady Markle and Prince Harry do not leave LA and get away from that structure, they will lose everything. And I do mean everything. Now, she'll just get all stubborn, because I just felt that vibe, and plant like a little 3-year-old. If Prince Harry does not spine up and say, "Look, wife, this is not good for us. We asked for counsel. Counsel was given, and it was backed by both the Queen and the Crown, and we are not going to go against it. Both the Queen and the Crown will protect itself, and it will cut the Prince off. And the more hip hop pushes, the further the Crown will cut the Prince off." The crown will go on, and the crown will protect itself. To removing even the Duchess title, Duke and Duchess title, if necessary. Hip hop, think they have power. They have no idea what power truly is. They could not begin to fathom what they could not begin to fathom. So the Kardashians, because she has her kid who's made $1 billion, whatever, it'll show you it's not about the money. It is about the maintenance of self. Lady Markle is a scared girl. And until she faces that fear, instead of running, she will destroy everything she believes in. She sits on a precipice to actually elevate the entire African American community. But if African American black community, but if she allows the thugs of African American black community, or even the educated African American black community, to go against what I am saying, the crown will not stand for it. Everything I said, from moving to Silicon Valley to learning from a European American dude who started off broke to being a multi-millionaire, has purpose and reason. One of the main ones is self-sufficiency. What they are setting you up for, Lady Markle, is dependency. And their goal, as I said, is to break you up, get to Harry, and then especially the Kardashians, and replace you with her, with one of the, because that's all. That's how they're social climbers. They're not your friends. They are your enemies. And the reason you have to go through this year of craziness and learning is to reprogram yourself, to face yourself, to grow as a person. And your time is limited. You think they have power? Please. They have no such thing. They could not begin to fathom what they cannot begin to fathom. Your actions affect the world. And then they'll say, well, we got the music, we got, nope. You have to constantly keep this self in the spotlight. If you find the courage and you do as you're told, go learn the necessities at finishing school, and then stand before the queen and face your fear. Only then will you understand. But the crown will go on. And the crown bows to no one. You made a choice. You want that title of Duchess and Duke, then you will do the things of that title of Duchess and Duke. Because once that title is removed, you will see so many people just poof into the ether. They are not your friends. They are your enemies. They want you to bow to them. And how dare you? You will once again move to Silicon Valley. You will learn how to invest from a broke to multimillionaire guy. That course is in the one I want you to go to mainly is commercial, which is in April. It could be simulcast or whatever. It is you should also go to Quick Start because you have to learn how to do put together deals because now you are in control. Once you learn this, you can be once again discerning. And then you can rebuild your networks. Then you can be discerning of which part of African America, black African America, you will raise and you will understand how and why, as opposed to them enslaving you. And the crown will not be enslaved to anyone or anything. The only thing the crown bows to is God. Many shoulders, or a few worthy shoulders, and one head. You are supposed to be of those shoulders. If hip hop and the black community, African American black community, finally wants the connection to the self, the higher self, to the longitudinal self of Western civilization, they will put a kibosh on the Kardashians, and they will put a kibosh on this fucking cartel member who's destroying their neighborhoods instead of holding him up to be their king. Because that's what Kathleen Kennedy is trying to do. This is your king. You're just a bunch of criminals, narcissists, and psychopaths, and that's your king. I am not your king, but she can be your queen. She can bring and lift the world out to show that it's possible. But if she does not face her fears, but face the queen to learn what is necessary to learn, we will destroy her. Find something, just as the vice president did, that you care about with all of your heart. The vice president's was maternity, not infant, childbirth death. That's something every woman in the world throughout history could understand. But it definitely affects African American black women proportionately in the United States. Find that cause that you truly believe in. You might take you 6 months, might take you a year. So you have to go do dumb shit for a while until you find that cause. Lady Markle. But you asked for my help, and then you spit in my face. And then you think they are more powerful. Just as what happened to Madison Orange, who I assume within 3 to 5 years they will have squeezed every good out of her heart and what's left of her, which probably Holly's going to be dead in 5 years. Jana might make it 7 after if Holly does not kill Jana. But all three of those women are going to be dead in 3 to 5, maybe 7 years max. If they're still alive, what's left will be a husk of a human being. But more than likely, they will be both physically and emotionally dead. And now they're going to try to prove me wrong, which ends up proving me right. They just can't see it yet. Your actions have global implications. It's a small club, and you're now in it. Where you grew up African American black, you did not have the understanding through birth and then through early childhood. I did. And I saw what happens if you let a poor person destroy your soul. If you do not face your fears and only fall into your greed. We saw with Caligula the histories of the Roman Empire. We saw with what happened to the Prophet Muhammad once he left Mecca. When the id takes over, fear is all that is left. So once again, I ask Representative Omar, will you stand up for the Constitution? Will you stand up for secularism? So, as we know, the oh, and Lady Markle, Prince Harry, Christmas is here. Yes, if they're your friends, truly are your friends. When object permanence is gone and you've moved north, of course you're going to get a new set of people trying to come at you. If Silicon Valley's not your thing, you back east. But whatever, wherever you find, but it cannot be in LA. There are far too many demons rolling around in that place. But more than likely, Silicon Valley, because it places you with. There's a network self necessary for what I am setting you up for. The success and necessity, because the crown is calling you. This is not. I am not speaking just for myself. You're being given an opportunity to return. And I am trying to help you get through this so that you can return. Your father wants his son back. And I'm pretty sure your brother, once he gets untangles the web of BS of his wife, would want his brother back as well. So here we are as a country at the we have a former president where people are finally realizing wants to turn this country into even the white nationalists were yelling at Charlotte. Putin was our friend, which he's not. We've known this for years. Putin's infiltrated the Republican Party. China has infiltrated the Republican Party. They have pulled the country to the far, far right, to the worst of our being, to the worst of the ideas of democracy. I have asked both Schumer and my senators to bring to the floor voting rights legislation with a break on the filibuster, even if Mitch McConnell does not like it. Personally, preferably that he doesn't like it. 41, I 40. If they want to filibuster voting rights, they have to do it as a talking filibuster. The cowardice of the Democrats is mind-numbing, absolutely mind-numbing. They would win. They have more of a probability of winning and driving this country forward on a level playing field than they do by trying to be like the Republicans or what is left of the Republicans, because they're not conservative either. They are just fascist. Conservative is, my personal independence and is individual independence, but still working together and having a moral compass. What this is fascism. It's fear, and I will rap, and that's hitting people until they do what you want. And if you don't stand up to a bully, the bully always wins, unless you stand up to them. And what you find out about bullies is they're actually pretty much pussies. They always are a bunch of fucking wimps. But they're good at externalizing their fear into others, and then they rally that fear. If you do not stand up to the bullies in a coordinated way, they will destroy this country and this world. Evangelicals were not co-signatories on the Constitution. Some of the Anabaptists, Southern Anabaptists were, but they didn't ever. They were the ones who were mostly trying to keep turn this into a kingdom. So were the Mormons. Started off, they in the hall, not the hall, but either the right or the blue. Those latter religions are betraying America. They're betraying the idea of secularism. And they think, just like Joe Manchin, who really does not, every action is shown, he does not give a flying fuck about his people unless he keeps them poor. And then he knows with Murdoch and his hatefulness, and then all the right-wing networks to keep the people poor, are going to flood the whole thing, the state. And that was borne out by when Bernie Sanders put in a op-ed in West Virginia of why this bill helps them, especially after his daughter's shipped off. It destroyed the mindset, the mind, because there's a cultural mind. A company has a cultural mind of that pharmaceutical company for $31 million. $31 million to fuck over her neighbors, keep West Virginia poor. So she can, when anything comes up, they can pick those pockets again. And then blame it on the niggers when there's no black folks who live up there. And even if there was, bigots use their fear to keep racists in line. Because bigots are cowards. They've always been cowards. So as I said, I placed in that I asked for, but by Schumer and my two senators to bring to the floor the Build Back Better Act. Quit with Manchin's bullshit obstructionism, because what he's going to do is try to run out the clock and then try to have this start all over again, and then say, because remember, he already did the whole "the niggers are taking your money" bullshit. Manchin and Sinema, because she's fucking over her constituents in Arizona as well, because that helps out small businesses, helps out workers, renews the invigoration of America. And she can say all this bullshit because she's basically banking on the fact either she'll get a parachute, golden parachute, because she is a coward. And they're probably saying, well, if we meet, you're not going to. You forgot. You would have broken. Every single person who says shit about me would have broken under these circumstances. That's why McRaven has done what he does. That's why Ty has done what he does. That has why all the people who've been attacking me, they've been attacking in a way that shows where their breaking points are. They have shown their weaknesses. They have told me who they are, because they know they could not do what I am doing. So the more they try to devalue, the more powerful I become. And if they do nothing, I still become more powerful within my own force. That is where true power comes from. You grow self, know thyself to become thyself. And with that, the coward in what I just felt was the cowardice in Lady Merkel will then go, well, I don't need the crown, which is running. Face the crown before you say what you do or do not need. Protect your husband before you say what you do and do not need. Because right now, you are not. You are running in fear. And that is unbecoming of the title of Duchess. So, once again, oh, I'd like to remind myself on a positive note, Starbucks, they, one of the smaller I guess, corporate stores, got, we're going to go back to this on another because I've gone all through the daggum politics on this one. We'll go back to later on another day. But Starbucks, the employees, and kudos, there's two things. Kudos to those Gen Zs and the youth for not allowing, who was it? It's not Killa, for standing up to, it was a, it was for not letting the unions bust their, who was it? Yeah, for Kellogg's, for not letting let them become union busting. Kudos to them, because if you don't stand up, you'll lose your country because you're just a number. And if you don't get stand up for your part of what you've created, especially in a public company, private companies just work with it. You can create like, not so much a union, but like a workers' council. That's two or three people that one or two persons that you vote for that helps speak to HR. Because remember, in a company, HR works for the company. They don't work for the people. They don't work for the workers. So if something happens, it's a group thing where okay, this is the guy that will you go with you to HR to file that complaint. Because I could have worked great when I was dealing with that bigot with Bombardier, and because I had no one in my back, nobody in my court. But when you're a public company, you're just a number. I just want my profits. It's up to you to make sure that you get part of your profits of your production. But you're a number. I don't give a shit. Where's my money? And the thing is, once again, they're going to say, well, we'll send your jobs overseas. Well, then fuck it. Then you should then vote for people who will keep that from happening. Or if they do send the jobs overseas, that we reinvest back into those who are actually patriots and build back the country, as opposed to whining like a little bitch, which is so un-American. Oh, they're going to send that overseas. Oh, please don't leave me. Oh! Ugh, fucking whiny shit. So, will Black America finally stand up, or will for voting rights for all? Because if you don't stop this gerrymandering, we'll get Orban. If you don't stop this bullshit about what they're doing with the courts, you'll get China. You'll get Russia, mostly Russia, Orban, Erdogan, which from a NATO perspective is a very dangerous thing because they control Agatha Sophia sits and controls the entrance into the Black Sea, which is what's going on with Ukraine because they want that Russia wants that land and they want mainly that access port to the Black Sea, amongst other things. Will the EU back Ukraine? I hope so, because just like in World War II, they kept giving concessions to Hitler, kept giving concessions to Hitler, kept giving concessions to Hitler, kept giving concessions, and then 6 million Jews were dead, which is probably about 30 million today. I don't know, whatever, maybe not that much, but it would be a hell of a lot more. And then the Ashkenazi have finally, some have started to stand up to the far right, to realizing that, yeah, Trump was fucking us. So was Bibi. You know, Kirshner is part of a very sect, a very, very far right sect, doing the same thing. Everyone's playing Israel. I have some more research to do about some things I'm thinking about, so I won't speak of them at this present time, but it's like that dude in Barstool Sports played his Jewishness, all because they were trying to get a hold of Harry. He's all butthurt. Oh, that one. I cancel you. You don't get the fuck out of here, you little bitch. Who you call it? Get the. I'm not your kind of. I'm not you, dude. I'm not the bullshitter like you. He's just basically. Everyone's jumped in my fucking computer. I have to do things in a manner that I'm not giving away the farm. I'm not fucking stupid. He's crowdsourcing all these dudes and and getting his narcissism fed with all that. And there's this bro culture of bitches. The Vietnam vets, the Korean vets, the World War II vets, they'd have laughed you off at the fucking room. Bunch of candy ass chest thumpers. So, Congress should not. You should demand. If there's any time that African American needs to march, it's now. Black Lives Matter. I tried to. Hey, dude, summer could have done it over the summer, but those two were. And then the gays, then the thugs. Like, who's this nigger? Blah 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 blah. As opposed to looking at the bigger picture. You're playing yourselves. Don't understand the game. Think you're being. You play well. Some are starting to realize it. Do you want to make this world a better place? Or do you want to bitch about if I'm black enough? Which I'll never be because I will never, ever, in my sides, internally as my heart, bow. Because that's what it means from, especially from Mike McRaven and the psychopaths, the the ones who are destroying this country, the ones who have been enamored by Trump and his blatant hatred, self-hatred, and they're, he's giving them greed to do the narcissist thing. He's giving them greed. He's giving them all these tax cuts. He's giving you all this. You saw what he did with Bibi. I made you win that. I gave you your position of power, and you then didn't back the lie. What do you think he's going to do to all those one percenters? And then their shame wound is way more dangerous, because then they'll use the power of these companies to back his bullshit. China will invade Taiwan, will back Taiwan. Russia will roll in the Ukraine. China will then get 1 billion people to keep going, but we've cut off a third, a fourth of our population, 40% of our population from getting education. Therefore, we're not going to be able to use the full value of the minds necessary. We'll be rolled up like a motherfucker. An army, a military comes from its people's minds. And the more they weakened African America, the more they weaken America. And when America is weakened, we will lose our position in the world. And that means more democracies will fall, and more people will be under tyranny. They're looking to the United States. How do you stand up? Well, we can look to Korea, South Korea. When they got tired of, when they got corruption, they jumped out in the streets and said, "Oh hell, motherfucking no!" What are we gonna do? If voting rights does not pass, by 2024, I mean, if voting rights does not pass now, so that way by 2022 it sets up strengthening things, forcing the Republicans away from this cliff that they're driving the country over. Your family, your lives of your friends and your family will be in danger. They have spoken, they have told you what they want to do, and you ain't fucking listening. Everyone loves to say the Maya Angelou quote. Wisdom is being able to use it. So once again, I vouch for the vice president to be raised. The president needs somebody who can understand, to carry the burden and the load. Blue and right, are you going to let your bigotry get in the way of the country? Are you going to remove the cornerstone? Or are we still truly the shining city on the hill? May God bless America.